Unfortunately, I think we might have a slight problem with the Zipp 404 wheels. Yo, welcome back to the channel, boys and girls. In today's video, we are taking a look at the Zipp 404 Firecrest wheels. We're going to be going over the specs, the details, the pricing on these wheels. Of course, we're going to be doing a weight test on these wheels, and we're also going to be doing a spin test on these wheels compared to some of the other wheels that I have tested in the past, because unfortunately, I think we might have a slight problem with the Zipp 404 wheels. So without further ado, let's begin. Alrighty, so recently I got my hands on the Zipp 404 Firecrest wheels. Now, just to be completely honest with all of you guys, because these wheels are both tubeless and hookless, that I am not someone that feels like I need to run tubeless wheels on my frames, because even though all the miles I do about 7,000 to 8,000 miles every single year, sometimes even upwards of 10,000 miles, I probably only get one, maybe two flats a year on either latex or TPU inner tubes. So I'm not someone that is prone to a lot of punctures. So for how I ride, I'm not a true believer of tubeless wheels. However, people have asked me over the years, wanting me to compare some of the more premium wheels to some of the more affordable Chinese alternatives that I have tested in the past. So let's go ahead and talk about the specs on these wheels. So first and foremost, for the Zipp 404 Firecrest wheels, the retail on these is about $2,000 USD, which makes them pretty expensive for what they are. They come with steel spokes. They come with Zipp's, I believe it's their in-house bearings, the ZR1 bearings with steel bearings. The external width on these, I believe, is either 27 or 28 millimeters wide. And then the internal width on these is 23 millimeters wide. And they are, like I said, they are tubeless and they are hookless. And to be honest, let's be honest here. Let's be honest. I think this move to using hookless wheels by these main companies, they want to tell you it's easier to run rider wheels or whatever, but let's be honest, it's a matter of money. It's budget. Basically, they are able to manufacture hookless wheels cheaper than using hooks. But anyway, what else we got in here? So because these are tubeless, I figured I might as well run these tubeless, because even though you can use tubeless specific tires with an inner tube, I want to actually see whether or not there are any sort of tangible differences on the road running tubeless. This is my first time running tubeless tires for my road bike. I am running on these tires. These are my trusty Continental GP5000 tubeless STR. The width on these is these are the 28C size of tires, and due to the width of the wheels being 23 millimeters internal, that basically plumps out these tires to about 30 millimeters wide. Now, as far as the depth on these wheels, on these Zipp wheels, the depth on them is 58 millimeters deep on both the rear and the front wheel. And these days, and I've mentioned this in my giant propel video, is I've been liking running a little bit more shallow depth wheels versus my super deep 65 or 67 millimeter deep wheels. I think part of it is just for comfort, part of it is just for aesthetics, and also too is because I don't believe that the differences between running a deeper wheel versus a more shallow, I don't think the speed difference is that significant, especially if you do a lot of group rides. Although for myself, I do mostly solo rides, but I think the speed difference is not worth it, for the weight and all the other things that come with it. So I would say for me and my weight, 58 millimeters is a pretty good depth for how I ride. Another thing I want to note is that when you are running tubeless and hookless wheels, both Zipp and even the GP5000 tubeless tires, they recommend a maximum tire pressure of, I believe, either 72 or 73 PSI. So what that means is when you put your body weight and your system weight in one of those tire pressure calculators on either Silca or even the SRAM website, that might mean that for your body weight, if you are on the heavier side, that you may not be able to use these wheels unless you are running a wider tire, say something like a 30 mil or even a 32 millimeters. I do know that there are some racers out there who have been able to run a higher tire pressure more than the maximum. It's probably just for safety. I know someone in particular, he's running closer to like 80 PSI, which is only like 7 over the PSI max for these wheels. But that is something to consider, and I think this is one of the reasons that a lot of people have not been quickly adopting this tubeless, hookless setup because you know, you run the risk of potential dangers because you can't pump up your tires to the higher pressures. Now you might be asking yourself, you know, why am I even bothering faffing around with hookless wheels, tubeless wheels? Because let's be honest, you know, these type of wheels, these Zipp wheels, you know, I do think, and we're gonna see how I actually feel out on the road, but I do think there are better alternatives for cheaper. One of the things you do get with Zipp is you get a fantastic warranty, especially if you are here in the States and you live by a Zipp or SRAM retailer. The warranty will be important for a lot of people if you don't want to be faffing around with things like that. But you know, for a lot of people, unless you are racing or unless you're someone who's doing a whole bunch of coffee rides and Instagram photos, that's kind of what these wheels are for. But the thing is, you know, like I said, because I'm someone who only runs latex and TPU inner tubes, I don't get a lot of punctures. So I know the main draw to this running tubeless is you get the lower, the lower resistance on the road, as well as you get the added comfort because you basically can't go any more than 72 PSI. So let's go ahead and get these wheels weighed out. Let's do a spin test, and then we'll take these out on the road so I can give you guys my on-the-road thoughts on these wheels. And today's weighing of the wheels is brought to you by our good friend Isaac Hayes with his LP Hot Buttered Soul. He's got some amazing songs on this record, or this LP, with songs like Walk On By and Hyperbolic Syllables, something, I don't know, whatever. Walk on by, walk on by. Okay, all right, so first off, let's go ahead and weigh out the rear wheel. This is with tubeless tape installed on the Zipp 404 Firecrest wheels with the 23mm internal. So the rear wheel is 852 grams. 852 grams. And let's weigh out the the front wheel. Front wheel on these 404 Firecrest, front wheel is 721 grams, 721 grams, which gives us a grand total for the set, 1,573 grams. So let's continue. Now, naturally, I had to fit these wheels and tires to my Specialized LA Sprint, since I'm basically, this bike as a whole is basically locked into the SRAM ecosystem, you know, being that I'm running SRAM ETAP, we got the Zipp wheels. Most of the Specialized bikes these days are being ran by SRAM ETAP anyway, so I figured this was an appropriate bike to use it on. The cool thing I will say with these particular tubeless wheels, and I think it's because of the hookless design, is I was able to mount and seat the tires using just a floor pump. And I know this because I tried it twice. So I was able to mount them only using a floor pump. I didn't have to use a CO2 cartridge. I didn't have to use an air compressor, nothing like that. So I got them mounted, and then I was able to add in my sealant, which I use the orange endurance seal. I was able to install or put in about 60 to 70 milliliters of sealant through the valve. So I can say at the very least, installing these particular tubeless wheels and tires was an easy job and something that you can definitely do at home with just a couple of minor tools. Free hub sound test on the Zipp 404 Firecrest wheels. Let's continue. Okay, so after doing some research online regarding Zipp's in-house ZR1 hubs, apparently customers have been reporting saying that the hubs on these Zipp wheels, that they don't spin as freely as they should compared to other wheel sets on the market, particularly when the through axle is properly torqued in the fork. So what we're going to do is this isn't going to be a super scientific test or anything, but I'm going to do a spin test on these wheels, and then I'm going to do a spin test on a variety of other wheels, and let's just see whether or not these bearings or the hubs on these wheels, how freely they move. So I'm going to do just a basic, just from the top of the fork, and I'm going to go all the way down. All right, and go. And stop. So about 9 seconds. That was just light pressure. So let's move on to another set of wheels. Alrighty, the next wheels we're going to test is my Windspace SL Loon D67 Hyper wheels. Yes, this wheel is deeper than the Zipp wheels. These ones have ceramic bearings. And yes, there's no rotor installed, but if those small details matter to you and you're going to be raging in the comments saying this isn't exact one-to-one test, then I don't know what to tell you. Maybe go watch a GCN video. I don't know. I don't care. But here we go. Light pressure from the top of the fork and starting now. Ceramic bearings, people, already. We're going to call it and stop. 38 seconds. Okay, the next set of wheels we're going to spin are my YOLO C50 Pro wheels. Now, these wheels should be a little bit closer on paper to the Zipp wheels because these ones also have steel spokes as well as steel bearings. Here we go. This is all real time. This is all shocking to me as well. I did not do this test prior to filming this. But you get the point, right? You get the point. All right. One more. Alrighty. We're going to call it. We're going to call it. Going to call it 1 minute and 38 seconds. And it's still spinning. Look at that. It's crazy. Alrighty. And finally, we have some wheels by the frame factory called Yishan. This is their 50 millimeter depth wheels with the sort of undulating whale fin design. Obviously, these look very similar to the Zipp. What are they? The 454 NSW wheels. But these ones also have steel spokes as well as steel bearings. Now, again, there is no tire installed on here, so that might play into how freely these wheels spin. But funny enough is the rotor on these wheels, these are not the ones that are aligned to these calipers, yet they still seem to fit without any sort of brake rub. So again, regardless of the variables, I would like to think that these wheels should spin freer or longer than 9 seconds. But let's find out. On the top and... So my suspicion on what's happening with the Zipp 404 Firecrest, I can't talk today, Firecrest wheels is I think maybe the end caps are being pushed into the bearings, which is limiting how freely the bearings can spin. But the thing is, I don't torque down the through axle some crazy amount of Newton meters, maybe like 6 to 7 versus the maybe 8 to 10. So I don't really know what's happening here, but I'll have to do more research. And most importantly, I'll have to see how the Zipps feel out on the actual road. And we're going to stop it there. 45 seconds. So let's continue. Now, another theory that I have is that this wheel is very well balanced and it's very true. So perhaps when these wheels were designed and built by Zipp, that maybe they paid a lot of attention to the sort of the counterbalance weight with the valve, all things considered. So maybe just the way that this the rims are balanced is that you're not getting that extra inertia due to the valve basically throwing off the balance of the wheels. And so that's why basically wherever this wheel stops at, it won't normally stop where you have the valve stem at the bottom. It'll basically just kind of stop wherever it stops at. So I could be wrong. I'm not an engineer, but please let me know in the comments down below what might be happening as to why these wheels don't spin as freely as some of the other wheels I tested, because those wheels, some of them cost as much as $1,500, but the Yishan wheels, those can be had for like $550 USD. So basically a fourth of the price of these wheels. Now, we're not talking about performance or anything. I'm just simply talking about the fact that those wheels are significantly cheaper than these. And based on the testing that you just seen, they happen to they happen to spin freely more than these Zipp wheels do. Will that matter out on the road? We don't know, but let's find out. Zipp 404 Firecrest wheels. One of the first things that I immediately noticed, and there is just simply no way to deny it, is just the amount of comfort and smoothness that you get from being able to run lower tire pressures. I'm running about 69 psi in the front, and then in the rear I'm running about 72 psi. So that is a bit lower than what I would run if I was running latex inner tubes or TPU inner tubes. There's no denying the comfort that you get from that. However, with that being said, I'm someone that likes a lot of road feedback. I like to always know what my wheels are doing at all time. I'm not cornering at high speeds where I need to have lower tire pressure. So for me, the trade-off with all this extra comfort, and even if this comfort does result in having a little bit of a faster wheel, I just don't like how dead everything basically feels. Like, I like the comfort of it, but it doesn't have the sort of road feedback and responsiveness that I'm accustomed to with my other wheels and running TPU inner tubes. This feels more like a coffee wheel set. It feels more just like an endurance wheel. You know, if I was going to do a long endurance ride where speed wasn't really the main focus, these wheels would be really good for that. But if I was racing or doing a super fast group rides where I had to do a constant accelerations and I'm constantly out of the saddle, I'm not convinced just yet. We'll see as time goes on. I'm not convinced yet that these would be the wheels I would take. I'm definitely taking my Windspace Hyper wheels. I'm taking my Yishan DB XR508 wheels for sure. I'm taking those over these, I know for sure. Like I said, these wheels, they feel comfortable. Maybe they do, maybe they don't roll as well as the test show, but just as far as actual road feel and sensation, these feel pretty sluggish. Some people on the forums have also discussed this as well and made this point, so it's not like this is coming out of thin air. They feel okay. They don't feel like a $2,000 wheel. You know, if I don't need the warranty, then what good is spending $2,000 on the wheel? But comfort, yes. Rolling feel good, yes, good. As far as responsiveness out of the saddle and putting the power down, not so good. Now, of course, I'm not going to spend my time and resources doing some sort of super specific testing to determine whether or not these wheels are quote unquote faster than some of my other wheels. To me, it's all about mental, and it's all about how the wheels actually feel on the road, regardless of what the data sheets show. If I feel like my wheels are responsive, if they're working in harmony with the rest of my bike system, then to me, in my head, that makes me feel like I'm going faster. That gives me more control. That gives me more confidence to put the power down. All these small intangible things, that's kind of how I determine whether or not I like a set of wheels. And for these wheels, you know, obviously this is just a first look, right? So it's gonna be difficult to say, but again, just, you know, off of this first impressions, I just don't get that sensation that these wheels make me want to really put the hammer down and go fast. They really just make me want to putter around town and maybe do like a long, steady, comfortable endurance ride. I am going to test out putting a little bit of a higher tire pressure, but the thing is, I shouldn't have to do that, right? I shouldn't have to exceed the max tire pressure for my weight to get that sensation, because that's the whole point of running tubeless in the first place, is I should be able to run lower tire pressure and I should be able to get all of the control that I would need, versus if I were using a higher tire pressure with inner tubes. And the thing is, if you're out on the road and you get a puncture with the tubeless tire, and say the sealant doesn't seal the puncture, and say you even have dyno plugs and that doesn't work, that means you still have to carry spare inner tubes just to get you home. And imagine trying to faff around with all of that sealant all over your hands and your jersey. I don't want to do that. I think the wild card in this whole entire equation is if you are someone who's just not ready to make the switch over to more inexpensive alternatives like a Windspace, an Elite Drive, or a Yishan, and you simply want to just be able to go into your local bike shop, buy a set of Zipp wheels, and have the satisfaction or just the confidence knowing that they're going to handle all your warranty claims and things like that. To me, I think that is a very valuable asset. Of course, that is part of what you are paying for at this price point. And believe it or not, the people who watch this channel, they probably aren't really looking for Zipp wheels in the first place. They're probably looking more about Windspace wheels, Elite wheels, things like that. So I mean, you know, the average cyclist that you might encounter out on the road, they're sticking to name brand wheels and frames. And so this is where I think that a wheel set like this makes a lot of sense. But yeah, I do want to highlight that these wheels are very comfortable with this PSI. And you figure I'm running a Specialized LA Sprint, despite this being a comfortable frame. You know, for me, it's still alloy at the end of the day versus carbon. But these wheels paired to this, very comfortable ride. Very comfortable ride. just feels almost like a Cadillac. So just imagine what it's like if you're running these tubeless wheels with a really nice carbon frame like my Propel. Just imagine how comfortable of a ride that would be. On this particular bike path, because it is fall, you have a lot of fallen branches, you have a lot of acorns, nuts, other debris, leaves, things like that, which basically makes this path pretty rough at times. And I think this is a good example of where tubeless makes a lot of sense, because you're just having to duck and dive so much debris from all of the fallen foliage, and you don't really feel it. You don't feel it as much because you're running such a lower tire pressure versus TP inner tubes. So depending on how you ride, that might be something that is important to you. I just don't think that when you're trying to put the power down, this would be the way to go for me as a permanent solution. So that is going to wrap up today's video, guys. I'm still not convinced that tubeless is the way to go for road bikes. I still am a fan of inner tubes, and at the end of the day, even if you get a puncture on these tubeless tires that doesn't seal, you have to carry spare inner tubes anyway. And I think that the quality of tire that you use, that's right, the quality of tire that you use is going to dictate how many punctures you get. So if you're using a brand new tire, a quality tire, like my GP 5000, which I've had a lot of success for over the 3 years, they are the only wheels I use exclusively for the road. I think that has more of an indicator of whether or not you'll be stranded on the side of the road with punctures or not. But that's going to wrap up today's video. And as always, if you have any questions, comments, or concerns, please feel free to leave them down below. And I'm gonna check you guys on the next one. Thank you so much for watching. Peace.